Is this thing on? It is. What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic wrap up to your weekend. It is Sunday night, doing a little bit of a late show, and I'm bringing up a topic that I've been getting pelted with. I've actually tried to do a video on this on a couple of different occasions, but I just can't seem to really get the format and the timing down and everything else. So anyway, the topic, get you guys kicked off. The topic is going to be about the 6.1 Hemi. Why I don't ever talk about it has popped up. When am I going to talk about the 6.1 has popped up. When am I going to do a video basically focusing on the 6.1? The problem with that is that, well, there's several issues here. The first issue that I have is that it's really hard to do a video on an engine that nobody is talking about. DESRT, what's up, man? I like it. Got the arm flex. But nobody's really talking about that engine. And I'll take that a step farther. I can count on one hand the number of 6.1 cars that were naturally aspirated that came in to have any work done on them when I worked at the shop. I can remember at least one, and that wasn't even to have work done. That was to have some stuff fixed on it. There were a couple of supercharged variants, but that was really about it. So at any rate, what I wanted to talk about a little bit here is, number one, why the 6.1 is so important to the Mopar lineage, and kind of give you guys some reasons and to give you guys some understanding why it just doesn't seem to get the love that it deserves. So first and foremost, what is the 6.1, right? I mean, everybody knows about the 5.7. What are we talking about when we're talking the 6.1? The 6.1 was SRT's first actual performance engine. The differences, though, between that engine and the 5.7 when it was released were not really all that well known. It was basically looked at as more or less a warmed over 5.7, which is not that far from the truth. It's basically, without getting too technical, it's got a better block, it's got a better crankshaft, but it's the same stroke. It's got a little bit better cylinder heads, a better intake manifold, definitely better manifolds, exhaust manifolds, but in a camshaft that is kind of goofy in its specifications. However, all that said, it's basically a bored out, like a 60 over 5.7 with heads, a cam, and an intake, and some exhaust manifolds, and a little bit better catback. All of which conspired to give the thing about 85 more horsepower than a 5.7, checking in at 4.25 horse. Back then, the 5.7 was only making 345. But the way that a lot of folks looked at it was, well, it's just a minor upgrade. And yeah, 85 horsepower is a lot, but they just didn't see it the way that they saw the LS family of engines. That's right. You almost can't talk about the 6.1 unless you're talking about the LS, because in, 2005, I think 5 or 6, when the when the 6.1 made its big debut, had a couple of other engines making their big debut about that time as well, which completely overshadowed that engine. And they had about 10 years worth of a running lineup to back them up, and an aftermarket that was already very strong. That is the LS3 and the LS7. See, here's the thing. Dodge, in their infinite wisdom, although they put the 6.1 in some pretty cool cars, the SRT Jeep, you had the Charger, the 300, the Magnum, and of course the Challenger in 2008. The problem is that it was a 425 horsepower in a world of 435 horsepower LSs and 505 horsepower LS7s. That's a bit of a problem. Then you factor in the fact that it was an iron block, and it never really had a platform that it could excel well in. The LX platform is heavy, and although it's a novel concept, throwing a 6.1 liter in a Jeep, the Trailblazer SS was basically right around the corner, and I believe it had already been doing well with the 6 liter coming into the conversation. So again, Mopar falling a little bit behind the 8 ball, and of course, an iron block versus an aluminum block means there's a weight penalty, and Again, the secondary weight penalty being that the platforms that engine was placed into basically meant that it was a great looking engine, made all the right sounds, but was not very powerful, at least by the metric that you would look at from Chevrolet. Ford really wasn't in the conversation at this point. You could talk about the GT500 in this, guys, though, because here's the other kicker here. Where the LS3, the 6.2 liter basically, was put into trucks, SUVs, big SUVs, with an iron block, as well as vans, heavy trucks. You had it showing up in the Vet, and later on in 2010 in the Camaro with an aluminum block. LS7 doesn't even factor into this. But the fact of the matter is that it was everywhere, and that meant that it was cheap and inexpensive. The 6.1 was only considered a performance engine, even though its power output really wasn't that on par with the performance variants of its day. Not to mention, Dodge still to this day doesn't have large full-size truck-based SUVs like the Tahoe and Suburban, things like that. And the vans, things like that, trucks never got that engine either. So limited run, limited production, not a whole lot of power, and in a platform that was already heavy to begin with. Oh yeah, strapped with the NAG1 automatic transmission as well. Things aren't looking good for the good old 6.1 at this point, but it does have a bit of an ace in the hole, albeit it's like having a full house when the person you're playing cards with has 4 deuces. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Ace high, full house, gets killed by 4 of a kind. And that's really where Mopar is its own worst enemy. So the LS is not only prolific and not only had been making a little bit more power than the 6.1, and variants of that engine were easy to get your hands on, where the 6.1 was a fantastic looking engine and would be right at home in any A body, B body, E body. It's the Mopar loyalists that really killed that engine in another way. The problem is that the Chevy guys would take an LS and will put an LS in anything. I mean, anything. If it needed to be repowered, LS is the first place you go because they are so prolific and they make a lot of power for what they are. The 6.1 wasn't prolific, and Mopar purist guy will absolutely rebuild a 340 before he's going to make a 6.1 work, where LS guy just makes the LS work. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is Mopar guy basically shot himself in the foot with the 6.1. And again, because it was never offered in any true performance platform, it was never really considered a true performance engine. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. And if there's any debate on that, just take a look at the aftermarket. The open market would agree with that statement. So it's a real shame because the 6.1 really is the LS for Mopar. It's incredibly durable. If you take care of the thing, they run seemingly indefinitely. We never had any 6.1 based any cars show up because the engine blew up. We never had any 6.1 based cars show up because there was a significant problem with them. Whereas the 6.4s were pretty common. There again, I mean, more guys were trying to mod 6.4s, I guess, and they were getting rid of 6.1s to get 6.4s in the process. But let's be real. I mean, we're talking 30-to-1 ratio here of problems, 6.4 to 6.1. So what do you want me to tell you? I guess the reason why I never really got super into the 6.1 was because, again, not a whole lot of folks got into the 6.1, and we just didn't have that many being brought over. Not to mention, because of the NAG1, they suffer a bit by comparison just in terms of performance, Nag 1 versus the HP70s that you'd find backing up the 6.4. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about that engine and kind of bring you guys up to speed as far as why I don't talk about it that much. Well, I don't get a lot of questions about it. And two, really, where do I see that engine long term? Here's where that engine does do well. And I was talking about engine swaps earlier. I will say this. When I worked at the shop, there were only two cars, literally two cars that I didn't want to leave the shop. One of them was a 2013 six-speed Challenger. For some reason, that car and I we gelled. Great chemistry. I loved that car and I hated to see it go. But TTI brought their 62 D100 in and had us do some tuning. In fact, I still have the tune for that truck in my computer. That was a 6.1 with a Nag 1, but it was in a truck that only weighed about 3,300 pounds. It's a gorgeous truck. It's a silver 62 D100. Check it out if you ever get a chance. I fell in love driving that truck. It was real snappy, real torquey, and this is just a stock 6.1 liter with long tubes, but real snappy, real torquey. The truck had so much personality with that engine. It was never overpowered. It just had that just right feeling where, it would light the tires up from just a 20 or a 30 roll. It was just such a fun truck. The thing was just in such a great mood. That's really where that engine would shine, is in a swap environment where you don't have to worry about actuators for your short runner intake manifold. You don't have to worry about VVT issues or swapping out cams and things or swapping out lifters and things like that because of MDS issues. Those engines are awesome in that environment if you can just get past the fact that it's not an original LA engine. And again, a lot of Mopar guys are really weird about that. And then you get into the whole, it's not a real Hemi. So that becomes a problem. It's like, good God, man, get over it, will you? Listen, if you're one of those guys, you fall into one of these categories, chances are you grew up during that era and you're a dyed-in-the-wool Mopar guy. I'm kind of sidebarring here for just a minute. But real talk, Gramps. The thing is that if you fall into that camp, chances are you've got a lot fewer years ahead of you than you've got behind you. Embrace the fact that Mopar is actually back in the mix now, and don't let that cloud your vision of what can be really awesome. And that is the fact that it's not a true Hemi, like I keep hearing also. That's a whole other video, by the way. But it's awesome in that environment because, number one, it's a beautiful engine. There's very few engines that look as good as that engine does. Two, if you put that engine in a lightweight car, it's in its element. That's where that engine should have been the whole time, and would have had a clear shot at being at least considered by the aftermarket had it had any performance pedigree whatsoever. So anyway, let me check in with you guys real quick. I just wanted to get that topic going. I'll let you guys start yammering here real quick. Dr. Diff's in the house. What's up, homie? Jerry Ton saying, did you see that kid's GT500 clutch getting too hot? I heard about that. We're going to be talking about that possibly in an upcoming video. I wanted to focus a little bit on the 6.1 for this particular video because I haven't been giving the 6.1 a whole lot of love, and I think that maybe I should, I've been rightfully called to the carpet on that. But yes, I did. I thought it was freaking hysterical, and I called it way back when the GT5. So I'm going to go ahead and pat myself on the back for that one. But yeah, I called that being a problem. I said that was going to be an issue, and lo and behold, here we are. So anyway, I did see it. Hokin's checking in saying, hey, Mopar Messiah just hit 50,000 miles on his Charger SP daily driver. Only had to replace front rotors. Very nice. You have that car for a long time. Man, those are good cars. Jerry Tom, what up, B? What up, man? Argrassi saying, hey, B, hey, what's up, man? Joe T, what's up, you Mason? The 6.1 is, I believe, didn't come with any sort of MDS. No, it did not. No MDS, no variable cam, no nothing. It is just a God's honest basic computer controlled V8 engine. That's it, man. I mean, and that's, again, one of the beauties of that engine. It works so well in a swap environment because of that. Let's see. Taylor's checking in saying, I have a 2010 Challenger with a 6.1. Been looking into a stroker kit and a nice cam. Good place to start. You know, the 6.1. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So the 6.1 is the basis for the 426 that was in the drag pack cars. It had a very similar intake manifold. I think it was an extrude-honed version of the 6.1, as a matter of fact. But yeah, I mean, it's you can go 426 with that thing, long tubes, cam that's going to check in, probably depending on your use of the thing, somewhere around the low 230s on the intake side, low 240s, high 230s on the exhaust side. The exhaust side looks pretty good on those things. Again, it just depends on what you're going to do. It's going to be the determiner for your intake center line. But yeah, I mean, that's where I would start with that engine. Make a great stroker combination, and they're fairly rock solid with that intake manifold. Even with a little bit of work, you know, you can spin them with a camshaft like that. Intake's LSA is going to be somewhere around, I don't know, I'd be kind of conservative with that one just to have fun with it. I'd say 114 on lobe separation angle and intake center line of like 109, and have a little fun with that thing with a stroker setup. Probably go 110 with that intake if you really want to try to stretch it, but I'd stick with 109 just to give you a little bit of punch. There's your combination. Feel free to contribute now. Destroyer 1320, how you doing, B? What's up, man? Steven's saying Mopar needs a lighter weight, naturally aspirated pony car, aka a CUDA. Yeah, man, you're reading my mind on that. So the issue that you're going to run into with any of the engines that we can talk about with Dodge, we can talk about the Hellcat platform, although I will make an argument that it is perfect for that car, or for that weight of car with an automatic. But that being said, the 6.4, the 6.1, even the 5.7, there's got to be some level of weight savings involved here before any power starts to be discussed. Any more power means you're going to have to build beefier transmissions. Everything about that driveline is going to have to be up to that task, because without it, you're just going to be breaking parts, or things are going to be closer to the edge of failure because of weight. I mean, more power doesn't necessarily mean better if it just means that everything downstream is now suspect or closer to failing. Let's see. Shawnee is saying, why is the 6.1 upper intake so desirable? A couple of reasons. One, it's simple. It's just a block of aluminum. No issues with short runner intakes and things like that. Two, it's great looking. And three, well, it's a lot of folks like it because the distribution in that intake manifold is better. It's more even if you're spraying nitrous. It's easier to control and easier to manage because that opening is right up front. The Jeep 6.4 manifold is very similar, but it's a variable runner intake. But anyway, that's why it's so desirable. The only downside is they do hold heat, just like any other block of metal would up there. Taylor Walker saying, I love my 6-speed, my 6.1 Challenger. Glad I didn't go with the auto. I would agree with that. Although the NAG one's not bad. God, you know, I'll tell you something. The NAG one with the 5.7 of all engines, that was the first automatic transmission that really got me into transmission tuning, because the transmission tuning was so good from the factory initially. Alex Andrew is saying, not related to the 6.1, but is there a cam grind for the 6.4 that provides mid to high range torque gains without sacrificing little to no low end torque? Yeah, there are custom grind cams. Give Dr. Diff a shout. He'd be more than happy to put a cam together for you. There's a couple of OTS, like off the shelf grinds, that were promising that, but they fell short. That would be the older comp 270 and 268 cams. Those are real lazy lobe profiles, and Hemis don't like lazy profiles, man. You've got to have something that is real snappy. That's why if you're planning on going cam for a Hemi, there is no such thing as a no spring required cam when you're buying a Hemi. You need to go with a spring kit. PSI 15/16s is what I recommend. Some folks will argue that that's a little bit much. I will argue that the Hemi valve train necessitates that type of a spring pack. You need to go 080 push rods. And from there, it depends on how much low end torque you're willing to sacrifice. And that doesn't sacrifice any low end torque question, because you're always going to sacrifice a little. But the good thing is that there are some grinds that are out there. I've got my own personal favorites, but the 6.4 is unique in that it'll take quite a bit of cam, but your limiting factor with the 6.4 will always be that intake manifold. And at the time of this video, there isn't an intake manifold that really splits the difference between the sheer torque that you can derive out of that 6.4 intake manifold and top end horsepower that you would get out of, say, the Holly. The Edelbrock Victor intake is pretty good, but there's a downside. Number one, it needs quite a bit of work. It needs to be cleaned up, basically. It's not ready to be run out of the box. It does need to be cleaned up a little bit. The runners do. Two, it heat soaks like you wouldn't believe. That's not really a big deal if you're drag racing and you're letting the thing cool off between runs, but realistically, man, it's just a big chunk of aluminum sitting on top of your engine, where before it was polymer that just doesn't absorb heat the way aluminum does. So they respond to icing down, though, at the track and at the dyno, by the way. But yeah, you'll be able to find, to that point, though, to your camshaft, Hemi bigger is not better when it comes to Hemi camshafts. Don't get overly aggressive with the cam. The cylinder heads in a Hemi flow like you would not believe. The 6.4, the 6.2 heads, even the new 5.7 heads all flow well over 300 CFM. In fact, as far as Apache heads go, there's not a whole lot that separates the 5.7 from the 6.4 and the 6.2. So just keep that in the back of your mind. You have a big cam. It doesn't matter what the intake looks like at that point. You're basically dealing with a tumble port head as opposed to a swirl port head. And so you need something that's going to be able to promote some level or semblance of velocity. The intake manifold does its best to do that, but the reality is that you're still not going to be able to outsmart physics. So don't go stupid with your camshaft. Talk to somebody who knows what we're talking about when it comes to cams. Let's see. Sean E., I've heard old school Hemi guys say that my car is not a real Hemi. Well, flip them off and tell them that if it weren't for your car, that nobody would even know what Mopar means, or even nobody would even care at this stage of the game. And that's a shame. But yeah, they say, oh, it's not a real Hemi. Let me explain something. This is the sad truth. The Hemi, the street Hemi, was a turd, and nobody really seems to remember that. Nobody wants to remember that. The race Hemi was badass, but no, the street Hemi, I've driven them, and I can tell you that they're nothing to write home about. They are not overrated whatsoever from the factory if you consider a fan being part of the dyno process. In different guises, yeah, the engine would make more than 425 horsepower, but the reality is that, I'll put it to like this, it was net rated in 1971, I think, at 390 horsepower. Maybe it was 360. Anyway, I can't remember. But yeah, it's not a real Hemi, thank God, because if it were a real Hemi, you wouldn't be able to drive it on the street. Nobody would want it. Nobody would buy it. So anyway, there's that to consider. Alex asks a great question. Why has Dodge not been using aluminum blocks for their V8s when Chevy has been doing it for decades? Decades Chevy's been doing this. I can't answer the question, brother. I wish I could. I would say that it had something to do with cost, but when you look at the cost of what these things are costing already, it begs the question, why are we not getting aluminum blocks? It can't be because of strength. The Elephant is based on an aluminum block. So the Drag Pack 426 is based on an aluminum block. I'm starting to get a little bit confused myself, Alex. I wish I could answer the question, brother, but I can't. Probably because the engine has never been in a platform that had weight savings as a prerequisite for consideration. So there you have it. It's the unfortunate truth. Sam Grable's asking, I'm in the market for a Ram Charger or Trail Duster. Trail Duster would be cool. In fact, I just got through seeing one for sale. It didn't last very long. Dr. Diff saying, we basically turn 5.7, 6.4, 6.2 engines into the old school 6.1 all the time. Cam, VVT, lockout, MDS delete. You see how good Jared's truck sounded. It pulled crazy good. Well, no, that's true. But you're still not killing the intake manifold. And the intake manifold is a linchpin in the conversation of, does the thing make power up top? You know, the cars don't have the variable runner intakes, which is neither really here nor there. It's good and it's bad, because the 5.7, if it had the variable runner intake, it'd be up about 20 horsepower, at least 15. Topic for another day. Anyway, but no, I mean, yeah, I mean, I see where you're going with that. But the key issue here is there's not an intake manifold that will allow that engine to actually turn the kind of RPM that it needs to turn to make the kind of horsepower that it needs to make to compete with the likes of LS3. You can even talk about LS7 if you want to, but you know, getting back to the 6.1 argument, you know, a lot of folks looked at the 6.1 and again, they thought they'd go, oh, it's just like a 60 over 5.7 with a heads cam intake and exhaust. Yeah, it should make 85 horsepower. In fact, should probably make another 120 horsepower, not just 85. But, you know, sticks and stones at that point, you're already well past it because they've moved on to LS-based stuff, which FAST and Holley and everybody else under the sun was making intake manifolds for, and had already started playing with that engine literally a decade before the LS3 came out. So there was already a deep rooted connection with the aftermarket that Dodge never had and that Dodge never got. So that's why we're at that's why we are where we are right now with that platform. Quick Bricks checking in. What's up? Saying, what's kicking, brother Mike? What's up, man? Dr. Div saying, going to spray the hell out of it tomorrow or Tuesday. Yeah, well, the cam dictates that you spray the hell out of it with that 112 intake center line. I'm not going to give anything else away about that, but yeah, that is a nasty little setup. Let's see. Sean saying the 6.1 is pretty cool, but the 392 is definitely an upgrade, but I don't know why Dodge stopped increasing NA horsepower after that. I'll explain it to you this way. When the 6.4 was being developed, this is something a lot of guys don't know. 6.4 was actually an interesting engine, just in its dimensions. Believe it or not, that started off life as a 6.4 liter. The Hellcat was going to be a 6.4, not a 6.2. But anyway, when the 6.4 was being developed, before the variable geometry intake was brought into the fold, the 6.4 actually made more horsepower than it does now. In fact, it was right around the 5.25. Some reports have shown it to be as high as 5.25. I think that's horseshit. It was closer to like 500 horsepower. But let's just call it 505 for lack of a better way of talking about it, just over 500 horsepower. But the issue was that it was a turd down low because the intake manifold is using the 6.1 intake manifold. And it just did not have the runner velocity that it needed to build power down low. Enter this variable runner intake manifold. And now you've got a setup to where you're forcing a restriction, so to speak, by creating velocity through the runners. Now that screws up your KPA inside the manifold, which means you basically are running, even at wide open throttle, a constant vacuum, although just by a slight amount, 2% of atmospheric pressure. But it's still 2% of atmospheric pressure, if not higher. In fact, as high as, even with one of my intakes, you'll still see it as high as 4 to 5% of atmospheric as far as a vacuum goes. But you have to have that velocity to create power down low. Anyway, long way of putting it, they have it within their ability to make considerably more power than what they're making now with the 6.4. Don't worry about a 426. You can make all the power you want with the 392. The problem is that, how do you go about doing it with a variable runner intake manifold that just simply does not allow the damn thing to rev anywhere near past 6,300 RPM, which is kind of past the witching hour, really, when it comes to the 6.4 liter. That's just the way that it is. You're going to have a trade-off one way or another. The only way to make that intake manifold work really well at anything above, say, 61, 6,200 RPM is to put a different camshaft in it. Something that takes a little bit of burden off of the runners as far as feeding and velocity is concerned. But you're still going to run into the same problem eventually. So that means that your intake manifold is your restriction. And even with me porting it and spending a lot of hours on one of those things, I can get some power out of it. But there's, I can do better than a blueprint job, but you got to have you've got to be able to intake air in wholesale volumes with that thing at RPMs that pistons and rods just aren't designed to turn at. That's the other issue with the 6.4. So anyway, we're getting a little bit off topic, but hopefully that answers the question. Getting back to it. Let's see. Sam's saying he knows salvage yard that sells engines for $300. He's got a lot of 5.7s and 3.18s. Well, they have a lot of 6.1s. That would be cool as hell. Jared saying, what up, bro? What up, Jared? Just got the truck running, and it sounds and runs great. I love it. Now get that thing on some spray. Actually, y'all are going to need to throw probably a little bit more timing at it. Ask me how I know. 6.1, or this is Doc Div saying 6.1 or Jeep 6.4 manifold for Jared's truck on the spray. I would say no, the truck's fine. The truck manifold's actually pretty, you're going to want the truck manifold on there, dude. Trust me. Give me a shout tomorrow and we'll go over the SRV actuator RPM to help that truck out a little bit. But yeah, no, I would say if you want to do a dedicated setup, then you're going to want to run the 6.1 manifold. I just don't know that you're going to be stoked with how the truck runs at heavy loads, lower RPM levels. It's going to be a little bit shy. I'll put it to you like that. But give me a holler tomorrow and we'll go over some of that. Let's see. The 6.4 thing. If it's me, I would go Jeep 6.4 if you can find one. Check it out when you get a chance. Pretty cool looking intake. Sam's asking, would you suggest an early truck 5.7 or a late car 5.7? Depends on what you're doing with it. The early truck 5.7s are great. I would probably take a look at pulling the heads off, have the heads. Valve seats can sometimes be an issue with those things. So with the early trucks, most guys won't have a problem with them unless you're really trying to turn up the power or you hit it with nitrous. But unless that thing's been overheated, chances are it won't have a problem. Let's see. Taylor Walker's asking, so what are the best beginning upgrades that won't break the bank for a 6.1? First and foremost, my man, I would say a tune and a trans tune. That's going to be the first two things that you're going to want to play with. Second would probably be a gear. I know you're not going to like to hear this, but I like 370 gears with nag 1s. They're pricey, but just save up. Talk to Dr. Diff. He might be able to get you squared away on that. But you're going to have to paper up for that gear. But dude, believe me when I tell you, tune, engine tune, trans tune, and a gear. If I were to build a 6.1 car, which I would freaking love to do it. That would be the direction that I would go. And I would just build it to have fun with. It really wouldn't be anything major, but that's the direction I would get started with. Here's the thing. You can go camshafts. You can really start getting freaky with it. The problem is, God, man, you got to pay that Mopar tax, bro. Keep the thing simple, keep it fun, keep it clean, keep it looking good, and it will light the tires up, and your great grandkids will be doing donuts in that thing. They're bomb proof if you take care of them. All right, so Samuel Jackson's checking in. A little off topic, but does the V6 model have a nag 1? Man, I don't know. I think it does. The older ones do. What transmission is in them? I know it's made by Mercedes. I think it's a variant of the nag 1. It's the same one. But it's like this, if I remember correctly, it's the same one that comes in all of the E350s. So check that out. Super chat not working. Tent donation slightly delayed. Thanks, brother, man. I appreciate the good looking out though. Don't know why super chat's not working. Shawnee's saying the new Dodge trucks with a 5.7 are starting to make some decent horsepower. Did they put 6.4 heads in them? No, actually. The heads that are in the Apache 5.7s flow their asses off. They actually flow 331 CFM by some flow benches. On the same flow bench, the 6.4 and the Hellcat heads, which are the same head, flow right at 340 CFM. That's what kind of flow numbers you can look at. To put that into perspective, the LS7 doesn't flow really much more than that. And that's saying something. So if these are at 340, the LS7, I think, is at 360, maybe 355. It's not that far off percentage-wise. Let's see. Dr. Diff. Oh, here we go. PSI 1515, PSI 1516s. That's my one. Pack 1219s or Pack 1220 springs are all good. Direct drop-in, but all need to be measured. TSP makes a great 3/8-inch push rod, which we use in all of our cam kits. Best dollar for the grind. Yes, for sure. That's the other thing. Always make sure that you have somebody set your heads up. Hemis are a little bit different cat. You can't just, you treat them like an LS where you just go, okay, BTR, Brian Tooley Racing, 650 springs with this cam, these push rod, and you're done. You got to set the Hemis up. You got to make sure that a little bit more care has to be taken with a Hemi because valve train's significantly heavier. So anyway, but good point, and those are some excellent parts for that setup. Shawnee's saying, no, they won't because the bigger valve hits the cylinder wall. Actually, what was he asking if they'll bolt right on? If he's asking if they'll bolt right on, no, they're similar, but they're not the exact same. But in terms of flow numbers, they are very similar. Sam's talking to Dr. Diff. Let's see. Catalyst 99. Maybe you've been asked this. Have you seen Ford versus Ferrari yet? No, I have not. Haven't had a chance to see it yet. Is there a parallel, a real life Mopar story that could be made into a movie? Sox and Martin is the first thing that comes to mind. Yes, that would be the first thing that I would look at. When you're talking about the golden era of drag racing, it doesn't get any more storied than Sox and Martin. So, yeah, there's actually quite a few old school racers, race teams from back then you can talk about. Nothing on a global stage though, the way that Ford versus Ferrari was. But yeah, definitely from a grassroots point of view, and from a factory backed racing, race on or win on Saturday, sell on Monday type of thing. Sox and Martin played a huge role. In fact, if the subject gets to you a little bit, you just YouTube Sox and Martin. It's SOX and Martin, and you'll see them all over the place. They were used in dealer promo videos for Dodge back in the 60s. All kinds of really cool stuff. So anyway, check that out, but that's where I would start. Shawnee's asking, so would you rather have a 446 pack for performance than a Hemi back in 1970? I'll put it to you like this. I would rather have a 440 than the Hemi to do anything other than modified drag race platform. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. The 440, let me put you like this. If you've never had a chance to drive one of the cars with a 426, they're and a 440, the 440 has tip-in throttle response the way that like an old like the Camaro, like the old TBI 305s or 350s have, like the LT1 350 has, where you just tip into the throttle and you've got, I mean, this bam, it's a smack of torque, except it's on a bigger scale with the 440. That's what you get. You get this tip in torque. You hang it on the converter with all the torque. It's got a neat, it's just a wave of power that you get to ride. The Hemi's a little bit softer. It's a little bit whinier about getting the thing up and rolling. Once it's moving and once you're starting to go through the gears, it's great. Tip that thing past about 3,000 RPM, maybe 3,200 RPM, and it really starts to come alive. And by about 5,000 RPM, things get real interesting with it on its way to about 6,500 RPM. But here's the thing, it's just kind of doggy down low. Listen, there's a reason why, if we're going to talk about it, there's a reason why there weren't that many Hemis sold. Now, keep in mind, there were a lot of Hemi cars sold. From 1964 to 1971, there was just the other side of 15,000 Hemi-powered vehicles sold in Gen 2 Hemi. I'm not talking about the DeSoto stuff. But yeah, right around 15 or 16,000. So it's not like they were rare, but they were rare by comparison to 383 and 440 cars. They were expensive, but they weren't that expensive. A lot of people will say, well, oh, it was because they were, this $800 option, back then that was a ton of money. Bullshit. By today's standards, $810 is exactly equivalent to $8,100 in 2020 numbers. And the cars were cheap. It's not like we're talking about an adjusted, $70,000 car. It's not even close. Base model, in other words. A Hemi Roadrunner would have cost $4,400. It'd be 44 grand by today's standards. It'd be about the same price as a Scat Pack. The reason why people didn't buy the Hemi was two things. One, yeah, they keep saying gas is cheap. Those things are god awful at fuel economy. It's beyond being expensive. They were just a pain in the ass. The range wasn't any good. And the second thing was, yeah, they were kind of a pig down low, and most people didn't like having to mess with them, especially if you lived in northern climates where they didn't always want to start. So yeah, they were a pain in the ass. They were a dog down low. They were inferior in every performance metric that you can come up with, aside from wide open throttle power production over 4,000 RPM. But everywhere else, the 440 basically trounces it. I mean, the 440 would perform felonious acts on a Hemi in every other environment aside from wide open, set to kill drag strip applications. So, or NASCAR, long-term power production applications. So by that metric, yeah, you'd want to have the 440. Now, back then I'd have ordered the Hemi because I'm an idiot, but I'd have ordered it and loved it for all of its faults. But just don't be surprised to see the taillights of a lot of 440 powered similar cars. Fast Man saying 440s were killing street Hemis back in the day. That is true. Dr. Diff's talking about the rear end options there. Crazy SRT8 saying, love the 370s, and it's good to see somebody finally do a video on the Icon mill that really got this party started. Very true. It was the coolest looking engine in a production car and still is. That intake, I know it, man. And that's one of the things that, look, the issue with the 6.1 is it cannot catch a freaking break, man. It's an awesome engine. It's great at what it is. It's a hot rodders engine, mass produced. Heads, cam, intake, exhaust on a 5.7 is more or less what it is, with a beefier block and a forged crankshaft. You can't fault the engine for being put in a platform that is just a little too heavy to not ever be in an actual sports car application, which it desperately would need to have to build some credibility. But they take to boost just fine. They're the best looking engine out of the group. Leave it NA, small cam, long tubes. Get out there and have a ball with the thing. And by all means, if you find one in a scrap yard, use that thing as a swap engine or something in an old Mopar. Because, dude, there ain't nothing cooler than that engine in an old Mopar. The way that they sound and the way that they translate that noise into just shit-eating grins, man. Again, that 62 D100, nag one, 370 gears, and the truck weighed, I'm telling you, 3,300 pounds. That truck was a flipping riot to drive. And I mean, I was legitimately depressed, like for a week when that truck left. I would get in that thing to data log it all the time. The tune on that truck was tits. I'll put it to you that way. Ernesto checking in. Oh, wait, Shawnee's saying Ford versus Ferrari was one of my favorite movies. I haven't seen it yet. Ernesto's checking in. Say, how's it going, B? What's up? Looks like rain next weekend. It looks like Sunday we're going to have a clear and pretty day. It's what we're seeing so far. But I will say this. If last year is any indication, we'll be watching the weather reports like a hawk. But if last year is any indication, we won't know until a couple of days out, probably 3 days out, what we're really looking at. So be looking in your emails, guys. If you are on the track rental, be checking your emails. We may be moving it to Sunday. So we've got a front that's blowing through. If it blows through fast, that's one thing. If it takes its sweet time and hangs out for an extra day, then we're going to punch this thing into Sunday. So we'll see. If for some reason we can't do it this weekend, then we'll just be rescheduling it for another time. But that'll give you an idea of what we're up to. Let's see. Yeah, Shawnee's saying Sunday racing's looking possible. That's what we're hoping for. Dr. is saying, yes, sir, B. Mason, we will talk tomorrow. Any particular time, morning or evening or afternoon? Give me a holler. Mid-morning should be good. I will be hammering out a ton of admin over the next couple of days before I've got to jet before the track rental. Let's see. Dr. Diff saying, I guess I deleted my last comment. Yeah, it is showing message deleted. In need of money every day, saying my 6.1 is doing 4.7, 0 to 60 so far. Very nice. Sam saying, now on the 03, 05, 57, is it the same or are there differences in the heads between them and the new ones? They are very different. They do not flow near what the newer heads flow. Let's see. Quincy's saying, hey, I'm looking for Challengers by end of year, either used RT or used Scat Pack with interior stuff too. I don't really race, but I want to still be pretty fast and torquey, save money and get a 5.7. You can. If there's budget enough for a 6.4, you always go 6.4 over 5.7, unless you are buying a 5.7 specifically to throw the money you would spend on a 6.4 at it. And even then, you should have bought a 6.4. You go to 6.4. Doug saying he built his 5.7 to 500 horsepower. There's a lot of those running around. A whole lot of high horsepower 5.7s running around. But you've got to want to do it with a 5.7. Like, it's got to be a passion project. Alex is saying, he's talking to Queasy over here, saying, Dr. Div saying, let's cam that Revlon behind with one of our cam chaps and put some fun into it. Bet the Wildcat would wake up. It would need a pulley. It would need more than a pulley. It would need a pulley and E85 pumps, And I would go probably 265 upper with an ATI 10% lower for that cam. Yeah, actually, it wouldn't be a Wildcat. It would be a little bit different grind than that one. Yeah. Gonna have to find the manifold pressure somewhere. I'm just gonna come with pulley ratio. Let's see. Queasy's checking in. Let's see. Michael Mark saying, I drive a manual 5.7 with 105,000 miles on it. I've read stories about the valve seats dropping. When would you recommend doing a valve job? It depends on what year is your 5.7, but a lot of those are a little bit unfounded. There's a very vocal minority of folks that have had issues with the valve seats. The reality is that not a lot of people have problems with them, but there are some scenarios where you can. One, if the car is ever overheated, you can drop a valve seat, or two, if you're pulling very heavy loads with it or hitting it with nitrous. Some guys, even with boost, have had issues with valve seats, but it's typically spikes in cylinder pressure, namely in this case, cylinder heat, can cause that. I would say if you're thinking about doing any work to the car, the heads are going to have to come off anyway. Like you're going to put a cam in it, heads have got to come off anyway. Send them off, have them reworked, and you won't ever have to worry about them ever again. Let's see. Doug's asking, can you just put on rear lowering springs on a Challenger RT 2010 model? You could, but I probably wouldn't recommend it. But if you do any kind of work to your Challenger, please get it freaking aligned. You have no idea how many times lowered cars have come into the shop. Tire wear looks like hammered ass. Toe in is jacked. Camber's obviously screwed up. Causes problems with traction, all that stuff. If you get springs, you've got to get the car 4-wheel aligned. It's not optional. It's not a suggestion. It's mandatory. Make sure that thing's going to handle the way that as good as it looks. Let's see. Oh, Alex is saying, now I went from a 2001 Durango with a 230 horse 4.7. That's actually a good engine. V8 to my SRT 392. Wheezy, sweet. I was worried about that. Oh, I think he's talking to Dr. Diff. Let's see. Dr. Diff saying change is going to be the point of it. Let's do it and make it run on E85. Let her eat. You're already breaking records anyway, so go after the bigger number of records. Man, I would, but problem is I'm having too much fun with it. So I'll give you an idea. I didn't upload this other video. I'm going to upload a video today that's kind of fun. But so I've been data logging it, right? Data logging fuel quality. So one of the things that I do that's boring as hell, but can be a bit exciting, is that I will data log fuel quality on this car. And so I took the car out. I was coming up. There's a bridge near where I live. I live down here on the water, so there's a lot of bridges. Anyway, it's a straight shot, long bridge, long uphill run. So I get the best of a lot of worlds. I get high load, sustained high load, I should say, high gear, high mile per hour. And at 123 miles an hour, this thing, and I know this because it's on the data log, you can see it start to do this. This thing starts to haze the tires at just coming into 120 miles an hour. You can see the data log as I'm cresting like 123, 125. I guess there was some construction dust. They're doing a lot of work down here. There's construction dust on this bridge about 3/4 of the way up. So I'm running the car. I got the computer over here. I got NASA going, and I'm going through the power sweep. And from my point of view, my correction starts to kind of do this, going up the bridge at about 123. And I'm thinking, this is familiar territory. That's what my Viper used to do when I would click the second kit at about 130. Or no, sorry, about 120 when I would hit the second kit going through 130. Car would just start to do this, and the vet would do the same thing at the top of the track, but it wasn't because it was hazing the tires, because it was on bias plies. But anyway, yeah, that was something that happened today. That was fun. Nothing like hazing the tires at almost 125 miles an hour. Catalyst 99 saying, which is easier, buying an old early 70s Mopar and stuffing a 392 and transferring just and transmission, or just buying a modern day Scat Pack? Man, look, you're asking the age-old question here for us guys right now. What's easier? Well, obviously buying a Scat Pack. I mean, you can, what's easier on the wallet? Just buy a Scat Pack. What's easier as far as safety? The modern stuff. What's easier as far as anything aside from cool factor is going to be the modern stuff. The issue that you're going to run into, and by the way, there's swap kits out there. There's K members that will accommodate all this and all of that. The problem that you're going to run into is all the extra stuff that it takes to work with that modern transmission that you're looking to have in that car, and having that work with the electronics. That's going to be the key issue if you're just going to do like a swap over. You're not going to run a standalone ECU, run the factory ECU. Where you run into a problem though, you've got to hook up the exciter rings, you got sensors, you got to deal with. There's a lot that comes with it if you're going to run that modern architecture. So I'd say it's up to you. If it's me, I would go. Shit, man. I would, if you can get away with a manual transmission, Tremec TR6060 with a Holley standalone system on a 6.1, that would be ideal. And then you wouldn't have to worry about any of the rest of it. Frank's checking in saying, I'm 60. I had a 70 Roadrunner 383, 3-speed on the floor, second fastest car in town. First 2 weeks, 13 races, lost 2. I tell you what, that's very close to, man, a 70 Roadrunner. I had a guy sell a 69 right out from underneath me. But yeah, that'd have been a fun car back then. 383 with a 3-speed on the floor would have been a lot of fun. But thank you very much. Alex Andrews saying, Queasy, if you have to drive it in the rain, just put it in eco mode and starts in second gear, you'll be good to go. That is very true. Speed Freak saying, hey B, any chance of you getting your wife's Camaro in the garage for a garage chat one night? Would love to see it and talk shop about some Chevy too. Yes, we are going to be doing that. So this year we're going to be doing a little bit of work on my wife's 92 Chevy Camaro RS. It's a 305 TBI car, a 700 R4 automatic, does real pretty one-wheel burnouts, and I love driving that thing. I get such a kick out of that car, but there are some things that need to be done to it, so we're going to get started on that this year as well. There's going to be a couple of cool things we're going to do, but the main thing is it's going to stay a TBI car. It's going to stay 305, not going to do anything dumb like that. The car's is too much fun to drive, but it does need the whole dash redone. I'm going to be taking a look at the fuel system, getting all of that sorted out, put back to stock. I did the fuel filter not that long ago and took a bath in gasoline, which totally sucked. Had a nice chemical burn, so that was nice. I wanted to just, anyway. So yeah, we're going to be doing quite a bit of work to that car this year. I am looking forward to it. And, it's so, like I say, I love driving it. People go, oh, they're so slow. Man, you're missing the point. It's that tip-in torque, that kick in the butt torque that those things have, that nothing like that anymore. That no other car has tip-in torque like those things do. And the Hellcat is a lot faster, but in that 1/4 of an inch of throttle, Camaro's got it. So cheers. Anyway, I love driving the car. I'm looking forward to bringing that to you guys here this year. Frank's letting us know 2 races were lost, 454 automatic Chevelle by a fender. Very nice. Cool car, man. I like those old cars. Alex Andrews saying, Calisana and I, definitely easier and cheaper to buy a modern Scat Pack, just like what we were talking about for sure. JL Rose is asking, what's the difference between the Hellcat and the Red Eye block? The block is basically the same, but it's the innards that make the difference. Crankshaft is the same. Rods, I believe, are different. The pistons are definitely different. If you've ever seen a set of Molnar pistons and rods, that's a lot like what the Hellcat and the Demon and the Red Eye pistons and rods look like. Aside from that, the cam is slightly different, but not by a whole lot. And that wraps it up. There's nothing really that much different. It wouldn't be unfamiliar, I'll put it to you like that, if you had the two sitting next to each other, aside from the red eye and the demon block being painted red. The big difference is in the supercharger, though, and that's arguably both a blessing and a curse for the red eye. They make great power down low when you compare them to the 2.4, the 2.7 in the demon, and in the red eye. It's just bigger. It's got better power delivery down low, but up top they seem to not be quite as good in terms of efficiency. But a lot of that has to do with the inertia of just having larger rotors. It just takes more to spin them. So has a higher parasitic loss, basically, if you want to look at it like that. Plus they generate more heat. But aside from that, that's it. Frank's saying, I have a 65 Barracuda 360, 340 heads, original 4-speed, 3010, half to one. 10.5 to 1 fast car. Those would be fun. I would love to have one of those. Only problem with, man, every one I've ever driven, the Mopars are actually usually really good. The B-body Mopars are always really good to drive. But a lot of the cars from that era, God dang, dude, they've changed hands quite a few times, and a lot of them are just kind of pieced together. But you can find a clean one, man. They're really worth having. Frank's saying he's got a 2010 Challenger 6.1, 6-speed, had it dynoed 385 horse. Where did they come up with a 425? This is new to me. No, the 6.1 was rated at 425 at the crank. So that is what they're rated at by the factory. He's hanging out with Alex. Frank is saying, I watched some videos. Supercharger says it'll give me 500 horsepower. Can you explain? He's saying he's watching some videos in a supercharger. I guess, I don't know which blower you're talking about, but yeah, I mean, it'll bump you up to about 500 horsepower. Depends on the type of supercharger we're talking about and the boost level. But yes, 500 horsepower is easy to come by with these engines, whether it's a 5.7, a newer 5.7, or the 6.1. Alex is saying, Alex is hanging out with Queasy. Frank is saying, can you recommend a shop in Reno? I live 45 minutes from there for my 6.1 Challenger. Don't know anybody in Reno, my man. RPM in Colorado, though, but don't know anybody in Reno. Sorry, bud. Shawnee's checking out, saying, good night, B. The forecast for Sunday is drier with better wind and air. I'm kind of hoping for Sunday. Actually, let's see what the forecast brings in a couple of days. Yeah, I can tell you right now, it's probably leaning about 70-30 towards Sunday right now. Let's see. Queasy's hanging out with Alex. Let's see. Doctor is saying, guess my truck doesn't log fuel quality. I'd love 42 reasons I test 100% of his E85. Yeah, what I'm checking is I'm checking short-term knock retard and load at, short-term knock retard at various airflow readings on my car. So that's what's telling me what is and what isn't happening with my fuel quality. And it is a tattletale, let me tell you. He's saying his station's got him in at 87. That's really good. Our Grassi's saying, hey, B, tomorrow's the day my Tourette Hellcats get delivered and comes home with me. I love it. Congratulations, brother. Saying, love to send you some pics. I'm checking out. Night, bro. Take it easy, brother. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some pics, man. We'll get together on that. Queasy and Alex are hanging out. Phallus Rex checking in, saying, what are your thoughts on race simulation racing tournaments? Apparently, they're getting popular. People nowadays race on Gran Turismo and win a lot of money. It has gotten big. I've seen guys get big into simulators. What was the name of it? God, this is really putting me back some years. But I used to like to do the Ferrari Challenge, what the hell was it? F50 Ferrari Challenge. Anyway, they used to have them at Dave & Buster's, and I used to compete in that. And never came in last, put you like that. I think to the semifinals a few times. But no, they're a lot of fun. The newer stuff is so far and away better than anything I've ever done. They have like the full kit where you've got the chair and the pen, just the whole deal. So yeah, those are pretty cool. Hey man, if it's fun, I'd say go for it, man. Quee's saying say he's gonna start leaning towards that 392. Got the arm flex, I like it. Yeah, you're gonna love the 392, man. Just hey man, ain't no sin in saving, brother. You know, I ate a whole lot of ramen noodles before I bought. I still eat a whole lot of ramen noodles, man. What am I talking about? So things ain't cheap. Let's see. Ernesto's checking out, saying, Ernesto, can't wait for this weekend. Take it easy. Peace out, brother. Yeah, for sure, man. Keep an eye on your emails. I'll probably text you too if we end up moving that to Sunday, which I'm betting we will. But can't wait to see you, brother. We are going to have a blast. It's going to be awesome. Check it in, Shawnee. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate it. Oh man, but for the tent fund, we are $2 in the kitty for the window tent fund. Man, I appreciate that. That reminds me, I've got to get my thing and clean all my windows. Windows are dirty. Been driving this car a lot lately. Excuse me. Been driving this thing a lot lately. A lot more than I've had a chance to, and or I just haven't had a chance to, and I've been able to drive a little bit more with the holidays, and it's been pretty decent here lately too. So. Yeah, she's dirty though. It's good. I like getting her dirty. Yeah. But yeah, I need to chill out with all this data logging I've been doing. Let's see. HU37's checking in, say with videos, they are probably talking about Pro Chargers. Their website is big on videos. Oh, I got you. Catalyst 99's asking, is the 70 Charger with Panther Pink exterior the rarest factory paint scheme during the muscle car era? Yeah, I doubt that it would be. Although I did see one of those come up for sale lately. Shawnee's saying it finally worked. Yes, thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you, man. Kenneth Smith is saying iRacing PC Simulator is pretty cool. It's got a lot of different types of racing. No drag racing though. That'd be kind of hard to simulate. There's so many minute, weird little details that go into drag racing. So, but that would be kind of cool. Josh G's saying 2013 Dodge Challenger 392 6-speed here. Dyno results claim 525 brake horsepower. I like it. That is that's what we used to get out of them. The 2013s with the low boost D1 and a standard intercooler on the Mustang dyno was always 525, 535. Speed Freak saying, fuel question, the VP fuels such as MS-109, Q16, what octanes are these? MS-109 is a 104 octane. Q16, I believe, is 116. Besides pump 100, what other octanes are used for racing, for race tunes? Depends on what you like, bro. That's the main thing. Fuels, how many brands of cigarettes are there? How many brands of beer are there? I mean, pick your vice when it comes to freaking fuels. Here's the thing. I personally, for the street, like 100 octane. The reason why I like 100 octane for the street is, and this is Sunoco, is because it is still E10 the same way that every other gasoline that you get is E10, with the big difference being that instead of being 87 octane that it's cut with 93 octane. So it's just a better quality all the way around. And it's familiar to your car. The issue is once you start getting away from actual, let me put you like this, the specifications for actual gasoline, which are at most 12% ethanol, technically 10%. But if you start getting into the E15 range, the problem is that some older cars, their components are just not going to play well with a 15% ethanol blend. So there's that. You can also get into the issue with stoichiometric values and how much fuel you have to run on a higher ethanol content fuel. you're going to need to tune more for it, is where I'm going with this. So I like stuff that's easy and stuff that plays well with stuff that I've already got. And that's your Sunoco 100. Problem is, a lot of folks don't like Sunoco 100 because they think Sunoco 104 is better. So that's 260 and 260 GT, by the way. Sunoco 260 is the 100. 260 GT is the 104. Memory serves me correct. Anyway, that's got a higher ethanol content. That's why it's 104 octane as opposed to 100. It's just got like 13% ethanol as opposed to 10. So that's the issue that I run into with fuels. There's so many different ways to get where you need to be, though. Find whatever's the most convenient. Find what your tuner likes to tune with and rock that gas. Let's see. Steven's checking in saying, I had a feeling old B. Mason was a Chevy guy. Let's see. I would be too if they made a modern car you could drive. No kidding. Well, here's the thing. I mean, look, man, not everybody rolls sevens every freaking time. So, but yeah, there's definitely some room for improvement with that Camaro. But that being said, yeah, I love Chevys. I love all of them, man. I'm pretty hyped with Mopar just because I love the styling. I love the story behind some of their cars. There's something to talk about, that when it comes to Mopar, and I guess that herein lies that Mopar tax, right? But yeah, I love me some Chevy too. I love me some Chevy for the reasons that like older Mopar guys will start to expound about, how great this engine was or that engine. And I just go, big block. And you can just mic drop because it's like this Lego kit, like it's a high performance hobby kit is what a Chevrolet is. So, you got a 396, you got a 454, you got a 427, parts are interchangeable. Doesn't work like that with Dodge. Doesn't really work like that with Ford either. I mean, it kind of does, but it doesn't, Ford sucks like that. I don't know. I never got ever since I was a kid, man. God. Trying to figure out what's an M? Well, what's a Y block? Does anybody even know these things? Anyway, yeah. Sorry, sidebar. Speed Freak saying, speaking of dirty, how do you wash Revlon? Always hand wash or power wash, or any special waxes or polishes? She still looks clean and sharp. Thank you very much. So my wife has just a Harbor Freight pressure washer that I'll hit it with. And then I use Meguiar's soap if it's here anywhere. Actually, I thought the bucket's probably in the back. Meguiar's soap and 2 buckets, and I've got a wash mitt, and I just use the 2 bucket method, and that's how I wash it. And then I'll clay bar it. Actually, shit, now that I think about it, I got to clean this thing up and clay bar it. Anyway, I'll clay bar it about once every 3 months or so, depending on how much I'm driving it, get some of the funk out of the paint, and that's it. Pretty much. It doesn't go through any machines or anything like that. And if I do take it to the coin op, I typically will use that if I need something with a little bit more oomph than the pressure washer, if I even use a pressure washer. A lot of times I just hose it off. Let's see. Monty is asking, do you see the 08 Challenger SRT8 First Edition being a collector's car? It's sorta, but not anytime soon. And I wouldn't say that it's going to just start to appreciate in value like crazy. It's going to be a while before those things are truly collectible. But, look at it like this. Look at it like the 300 Special Edition, Heritage Edition. I'm sorry. You can kind of look at them in the same guise as that. They're cool, but they're not super cool. I mean, this is a first edition Hellcat. So second actual production order run on this one, November 19th, 2014. So Does that make it special? I don't know if it does or doesn't, but there's definitely some room to talk about there. And keep it nice, keep it clean, man. Who knows? There's an ass for every seat too, and you would be shocked to find out what some people will look for. So is it going to be a collector car? No, probably not. But there will be somebody out there that will see it and appreciate it for what it is. If it's clean, kept up nice, and you just hang on to it and take care of it and have fun with it. Let's see. Oh, Alex is asking, so what would you do differently with a new 6.4 manifold to solve the problems with it? Damn it, man. I tell you what, I would probably start with the actual design of the manifold itself. I would prefer to have something that looked a lot like an LS3 manifold, and would take a little bit better utilization of the RPM potential that the heads could offer. So slightly shorter intake manifold, still use variable runner, but just shorten the runners up a little bit, make them slightly larger, a little bit more belled out, and still run with the common plenum, but have a front mount throttle body as opposed to one that necked over, which is a restriction. And use a larger throttle body, somewhere in the range of 87 to 90 millimeters minimum. That's what I would start with, and that's where I would probably end with this car. Kill the variable runner idea, and it would look basically just like the MSD intake does for the LS stuff. Problem solved. And that's really about as far as I would need to take it, because to be honest with you, the heads do all the work. It's just they need the right RPM range to operate in to make the best power. You're going to be giving up torque down low either way. I'd say just put more aggressive gears in it and call it good. Let's see. Crazy SRTA. It sucks when the topic is on something that doesn't get a lot of attention, and then someone asks about another car and don't want to hear about it because it robs our time. Yeah, I know it. And that's the thing, though. I mean, I've tried to talk about 6.1s, and it's tough, but the thing with the 6.1 is when we're talking about the 6.1, we've got to put things into context. I mean, the 6.1 in a vacuum is an amazing engine. The 6.1, if you don't know about the LS3 and the LS7, well, the Coyote wasn't even out then, so it doesn't even come into the conversation. There was nothing like the 6.1 out there. But the problem is that the platform just never really, there wasn't ever any plans to use that engine in something like a sporty car. So because of that, it kind of got hurt by comparison. And then really if they would have made the 392 based more off of the 6.1 architecture without having the variable runner intake and variable, the MDS system and variable cam and all that, if they would have stepped it up to 392, which would in essence have been just putting the different crank in the car, if that would have been the case, I think that the aftermarket would have taken to that engine a little bit more quick. Well, they would have taken to it, not more quickly. They never really did take to it. I think they would have started to take notice of it more than anything else. And from there, I think that, maybe without the development of the 6.4, you could make the case that an aluminum block would have been forthcoming, mainly because there was an aluminum block version of that engine, albeit as a 426 for the drag pack car. Anyway, they were out there, and all of these things could have been done. I think that the issue that we truly have here, though, with the 6.1 is that in its somewhat short life, it never really got the credit that it deserved for getting us to where we are now. It led into what would end up being the 6.4 and then obviously the 6.2 for the Hellcat. But it's like a branch of the family tree that just stopped. And For those that are in the know and you know what you're looking at, you'll know how special of an engine that it is and all the cool things you can do with it. Just make sure that you don't allow it to suffer by comparison. The argument, well, the modern 5.7 with 370 horsepower, 390 pound-feet of torque for the cars, and basically 400 and 400 for the trucks because of the intake manifold. Coupled with the 8-speed can put a hurting on a 6.1. Well, that doesn't prove anything. It should. I mean, the engine technology and all of that progresses, and so you wouldn't expect it. You would expect it to be a better performer, but I think the reality is that there's a lot of good that you can say about the 6.1 without getting over ingratiating with it. Let it stand on its own. Let it have its day. But I think that if the question is, what do I need to do to a 6.1 to make it outperform a 6.4? The answer is you can't. Because performance means a lot of different things. Performance isn't just wide open throttle. It's partial throttle, throttle response, torque production down low, fuel economy, all of that. I mean, even if you're talking two 6-speed Challengers, 161, 164, you'll find really quickly where the differences are. But without the 6.1, the 6.4 wouldn't have existed. Certainly not the way that it does now. So, thanks 6.1, you got us where we are now. It's just too bad that there's not another engine like it. But nobody has an engine like that anymore. I mean, Chevrolet doesn't put LS3s in anything. It is what it is. Times change and things change. Phallus Rex, are Pinto and AMC Gremlin considered collector cars? Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, they have a very strong following. You'd be shocked. You'd be real surprised. Just because it's not $1 million car doesn't mean people don't collect them. Kenley's saying, I'm an 04 Dodge Ram 5.7 Hemi. Should I do the 6.1 Hemi intake swap? Depends on what you're looking to get out of it. The 6.1 Hemi intake, that's the other thing. Get ready to paper up, man, because that stuff ain't cheap. Every single one of these things that I see is obnoxiously expensive. But that's part of the problem with that engine is it was only offered in SRT cars or Jeeps, whatever. They were never offered in, like I was saying earlier, there is no Mopar Tahoe, right? I mean, you had the Jeep and then you had all the sedans and then the coupe, which is the Challenger. But the issue is, would I do it? No, it's not worth the money, period. I mean, why would you want to if for no other reason than the look? But if that's all you're in for, then I say go for it. But man, some of the prices I've seen on some of those intakes makes me just go, what the? Anyway, yeah. Let's see. Caesar's saying, seen a Hellcat going sideways and crash. Are those limited slip differentials gate drag could fail? I haven't heard of that happening. Also, what is your opinions on the LDS conversion traction concepts? Looks like a Phantom grip. Not familiar with it. Would have to see it. Let's see. Unless I'm just not picking up what you're putting down there, man. But yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. Haven't messed with any of that. Stock stuff, factory stuff's been doing really well for me and haven't had any issues so far. Let's see. Phallus Rex is asking, do you think there's ever be a time where Ford will bring back the Lightning? I sort of already have. The Roush trucks were kind of a lean in that direction. There's a dealership out of Georgia that was doing the Roush conversion on single cab short bed trucks, putting down about 650 horsepower at the flywheel. So yeah, it's certainly nothing to sneeze at. I think those trucks, what were they? They were all obviously automatics, 73 gears with a Roush supercharger. And they've got really cool looking reproduction style wheels on them. Anyway, check them out. Look up Modern Lightning, Modern Ford Lightning Georgia, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, I can't remember the name of it. They're awesome trucks, though. And in fact, there's several of them here in Houston, and they've got the Lightning badging. They're obviously fleet side, which they look great. They kind of look like a modernization of the Gen 1 Lightning. I think they look great. Freaking haul ass. But getting back on topic now, circling all the way back around on that 6.1. You know, guys, I would love to have more conversations about the 6.1, but man, I hate to tell you, most of the guys that had 6.1 cars got rid of them. They got rid of them. They traded them in for either 6.4 cars or Hellcats, and they seem to disappear. I don't know. They vanish into thin air or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's something that I never really had an opportunity to see that many of them. And the ones that I did see were typically, man, they're pretty far gone, guys. I mean, like really pretty far gone. They had passed through, a couple of sets of hands, weren't very well maintained. And I mean, obviously it's not the engine's fault. It's not the car's fault. It's just, that's what we were running into. And obviously when you're working at a shop, you see the stuff that goes wrong. You see the problems with the cars. But I will say this. Again, I want to reiterate, not once did one of them come in that had suffered anything catastrophic. There was never, ever a 6.1 catastrophic failure the way that you would see it with 5.7s or with the 6.4s. And I don't know what to chalk that up to, aside from the fact that, 6.4s like to eat camshafts and, 5.7s like to blow up when they're bone stock. But again, you only see the stuff that fails when you're around that kind of environment. So 6.4s failed on the dyno too. But then again, so did 6.2s. So did LS3s for no real apparent reason. And let's see, what else? No, a little bit of everything. But then again, when you're around shops and you're putting the wood to these things, stuff happens. So that's why they make disclaimers. Let's see. Phallus Rex saying SRT8 cars I've seen here in LA are poorly taken care of, or they always look like someone beat the crap out of them. Man, I tell you what, same way down here too, man. I mean, we just rarely ever see nice ones, and when you do, they're few and far between. And a lot of the guys that have them, I mean, they just don't ever get rid of them. And that's kind of the other thing I wanted to bring up too about 6.1 cars that I didn't really get a chance to get to. I mean, we talked about some of the technical details and kind of their perception, but one thing I have noticed about the 6.1 that I never really noticed about the 6.4s is that guys that have 6.1 cars typically hold on to them for a long time. 300 owners, Magnum owners are really leading the charge with that. I have seen, now that you mention it, hold on, let me think about this. I've seen more one owner or second owner 6.1 cars, and the second owner in at least one of those cases for sure was the original owner's daughter bought the Magnum from the dad. But a lot of single owner or fewer hands had been changed at that point, now that I'm thinking about it. But that's just my own personal experience with the cars. Your results may vary, but they're either in really good shape or they are completely ragged out. So, but at any rate, y'all, well, guys, we are coming up on an hour and a half. I am going to cannonball out of here. Get ready for a big week coming up. Guys, if y'all are in on the track rental, keep us sharp eye out on your emails and on your phones. I will be advising as to what we are going to be up to. Again, I'm about 70% sure we're going to be nodding this thing back over to Sunday, basically because of this front that is seemingly taking a little bit longer to show up to the party than maybe the meteorologists had originally thought. I don't know. About this time every year, I turn into a wannabe weather reporter guy, watching that weather report like a hawk. So anyway, that's a wrap on this one. See y'all on the next one. Y'all try not to do anything dumb. That's my job. And until next time, adios.